The lizard brain is the reason you're afraid. The reason you don't do all the art you can. The reason you don't ship when you can. The lizard brain is the source of the resistance. Welcome, champions, to another episode of Champion Reads, where we talk about the best-selling books and their best principles to help you with your best lives. My name is William Blake. Today, we are also met with the co-founder of Champion Circle, Mr. Joe Kovacs Jr. I don't know why I say co-founder. You are the founder of Champion Circle. And Champion Reads is sponsored by Champion Circle, which is a professional organization to help individuals be high achievers and to achieve their results at accelerated speeds. I'm very excited today to continue the conversation that we've been having the last couple of weeks on the book, The Linchpin by Seth Godin. And I'm really excited about this topic today because today we are talking about none other than the negative side of it, the resistance, the lizard brain, why we are part of fear, why we stay in the comfort zone, why we don't go out and try to excel in things we're good at. So, very excited about the conversation we're having today. And I'll start it off with the definition that Seth Godin says with what the lizard brain is. What the lizard brain is that it represents the primal fear-driven part of our brain. It prioritizes survival and thrives on fear, anxiety, and resistance to change. Its internal voice, and I'm sure some of you, like myself, have heard this in our internal voices before, that say, don't take risks, play it safe, or you're not good enough. I can't tell you how many times during my entrepreneurial journey, as well as even in my childhood, that I heard these thoughts come into my mind. But that's the lizard brain. That's the primal instinct within us. And for you champions who are listening, let me share a quick story and before I turn it over to John, because I know my man has so many full ideas, so many good things to add to this conversation. But I remember back when I was a kid, I was at a playground, first grade, and I was playing tag with all the kids. And there's this girl, and she was cute. You know, I don't know if first graders can have crushes, but this is pretty much as close as you can get to a crush in the first grade. I know, hearts all around. We were playing tag, and she was playing, and I was it. And I saw her, and I'm like, I'm going to go chase her. So I started chasing her, and we're running around the playground. And she went to jump up on the monkey bars to then swing up to the playground to run away from me. And as I jumped to try to tag her, I tripped. And accidentally, my hand flew down. I hit my face on the ground. And what I didn't realize at the time was that my hand swiped down on the back of her pants. And her pants fell down. And she was flabbergasted about what happened. So she quickly pulls me up and just starts crying about it and runs inside the elementary school. Me not knowing what to do, I just cross legs, sit there on the ground. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. But I didn't have any fear. I was just like, everything's okay. I'll just explain to whoever she's going to get what happened. A couple minutes go by. Teachers come out with her and they walk over to me and I'm still sitting on the ground. And one of the teachers said, "Did you pull down her pants?" And looking up at them, I said, "Yeah, I did." Because that was the truth, right? I accidentally tripped and pulled down her pants. But before I could explain myself in the situation, the teacher said, "You're done with recess. You come inside." And it was at that moment where then I started to tell them, I'm like, wait, this is what happened, but they didn't want to hear about it. And so I went inside and didn't get recess that day. And I don't think I got recess the rest of that week. And this little seed was planted in me of this thought that grew part of my lizard brain, which is people don't listen to me. And because they don't listen to me, I'm not good enough. And so I'm not going to raise my voice. Now, if any of you know, if you let that seed be planted and let it grow of you not being good enough and you not sharing your voice, you start to become shy. You start to feel lesser than other people, and you feel like this world's not worth living in. And that's what I felt like as I was growing up in elementary and middle school. And so this thing with the lizard brain, I think there's a lot to be uh, put into it. With there's some things that are just natural to us, the fears of wanting to survive and anxiety and such. But I also think that there's conditioning of which are just in those moments to where we might not have gotten the best outcome we could have, that we decided to ourselves, you're not good enough, play it safe, don't take risks. There's so many different things I'm going to turn it over to John uh, to hear his thoughts and as we start this session. But for each of you who are out there, what's the lizard brain for you? John, I'll just ask you that as we go on. What's the lizard brain to you, and
Man,
what has it done for your life?
I love that you've begun this dropping bombs of knowledge and experiences, and thank you for sharing that story. And it's insane to me how deeply rooted all of the adult problems that we have are from playgrounds, and how our experiences as adolescents and children have truly embedded that belief or that fear, that thought, that knowledge, because it is something that it's something that has it's scientific. It gets into our built, our making, our DNA, our component based um uh drive, and it's crazy. The word we're looking for is amygdala. It's the front part of your brain that recognizes and senses fear. And we all have someone in our lives, a family member, a friend, somebody who we know that has no sense of fear. They will do anything, and they're always have a cast on, or they're always paying some medical bill, or they're always getting out of some trouble, right? But there is the positive side to developing the fearless mentality. But I got to tell you, Willie, when it comes to lizard brain, the first time I ever heard that term was when I picked up this book. And I picked up this book as an assignment in one of my classes in my first semester of college. And Seth Godin, I mean, he nails it on the head when it comes to being a linchpin and being indispensable. And I have a bunch of stories I'll share in a little bit, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what you said, and I'll speed this up because now there's three of us and we can dive into a lot more conversation. But I love your story because your story paints the picture of a kid who was taught the right thing to do, who was doing the right thing, but everyone else around them didn't understand. And because of that, you put one A plus B equals C, right? You put one and one together, which allowed you to believe for the longest time that people don't listen and that you weren't important, or whatever the takeaway was. And that is something, if you think about, like, for those of you listening, if you think about lizard brain, the definition is pretty self-explanatory. But if it's a little hard to understand over the air here, just think of it as like a dog or a cat or one of your pets, right? If you think about, like, if if your child burns their hand on the stove, are they going to touch the stove again? Maybe, maybe not, but it's a very quick reaction. If your dog or if your animal gets busted for doing their business in the house or on the carpet, and you let them know, it takes that discipline to sort of teach them, but we don't know what the other side is like. Maybe because of understanding, right, of communication, they don't understand what's being communicated to them. Therefore, they may or may not do the right thing next time they feel like they have to use the restroom inside the house, right? They may not tell you until it is ingrained in their brains what it is that they need to do, and they develop, and I'm going to say the word confidence, because the more confidence you build around doing the right thing, you don't even have to think about it. But the more fear you develop around doing the right thing, for example, a supervisor of mine used to just tell us every bad thing and every wrong thing that we used to do. So because they only communicated the wrong things, we were so fearful of doing the right things because we had no idea what was the one thing that kept them from yelling at us or coming down on us as a team. And so it's just so deeply rooted, and we could go into so much depth about this, but I just appreciate your story, and I appreciate the way that you orated that and told us, because it is something that we can work on, overcome, and develop. But it's also a deeply rooted piece that you have to recognize. And sometimes to get there, Willie, you have to go back and you have to live through the pain again. And I just see this, this cute little William boy who crosses his legs and he's like, well, I, I'm, I don't know, like what am I to do? And, I wish the supervisors in that situation would have had the intuition to look into the situation and to do some digging and help understand, but they didn't. So that caused a lot of deeply rooted issues. And I have stories on stories to do so as well, but I want to yield my time to others. But yeah, the definition is really understandable. Just think of it in a very primal way, that A plus B equals C. It needs to be almost Neanderthal-like to understand this, because it is a very simple concept, but yet it's our lizard brain. It's our most primal and instinctive uh, presence. Although we are an advanced civilization, we still are innate human beings that have fight or flight senses and all sorts of things that keep us alive and keep us functioning. And that's just the deal. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, it's the resistance with it, right? It's the lizard brain is from the resistance that occurred to wherever thing happened with it, right? Ian, welcome on. Glad that you're here. I'd love to hear
Thank you.
your discussion. Uh, with the resistance, like, it comes to two different things. One is the internal struggle, which manifests it. It's that force behind us not wanting to get our products out or sharing our ideas or stepping into that unknown space. And then there's a second thing, which is like the externalizing resistance, which Godin goes well into explaining that it's recognizing the resistance as external to our true self, and that's what we need to do to be able to confront it. Like, it's not you that is scared, it is the situation that has bubbled up within you. It's that resistance, it's that lizard brain that has come up, that's created that, which is great, right? Not many people think of that as a great thing because it stops them from doing it, but I see it as a great thing, because when you have that resistance and you know about it, then you can change it, right? If you don't know about it, you're screwed. You're screwed for the rest of your life. But the moment you get to know about it, moment you understand that whatever happened in that moment, like for me as a kid, when the supervisors came, the teachers came and told me and said I couldn't go to recess anymore because they didn't listen to me. Now I'm able to go back in that moment. Now I'm able to show up for myself and be like, and be the superhero for my younger self, which then inside heals my internal child of saying, we don't need to be protected because we're not being attacked. You had this moment in the past that we can now start healing from and start walking towards the future. That's why I love, like, that's why it's so great, because once we understand it, then we can start moving forward from it. Ian, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad. I missed the first part with your story, so I'm excited to go back and listen to that. But as we're talking, I kind of got an idea that there's like a line of understanding, and below that line is survival. That's the lizard brain. What do we need to do to survive? And above that line is our conscious mind saying, how can I progress? How can I get better? How can I do more? And I think I hear that in your story. The lizard brain is that survival instinct, fight or flight. What do we have to do? What do we have to do to appease our supervisor, to put food on the table? And all of that up to there is the lizard brain. But then we start to think about what's happening. And we look back on what the lizard brain told us, what it did for us, and say, okay, that got me here. Now let me take that next step. Let me build on that. Let me progress beyond the fight or flight to protect myself more, to build a better future, to create, to be artistic. So I think it's when we learn to cross over that line, to take that one step beyond lizard brain into Homo sapien, for lack of a better term, with that. I think is a key, and it's a hard step to take. Why do people? I had a lady that I worked with before. She worked a graveyard shift. I was a supervisor, younger years in a gas station. I managed it. She would drive almost an hour to work graveyard shift at a gas station. She passed 50 gas stations that she could have worked at on the way there. But she didn't want to change. She wanted that stability, that lizard brain saying, I know what I'm doing. I'm comfortable here. I don't want to change to a new boss, a new location. I'll drive 2 hours a day, spend $20 on gas to get here because it's safe. I'm protected, instead of taking that step over to that risk. And I think that's a lot of what Seth Godin says. You've got to take that step over beyond this, because this lady was a wonderful lady and 150% replaceable, if you don't do my math. She was not a linchpin. She could be replaced in an instant. But she wasn't willing to take the step to become irreplaceable, to become the linchpin, because she was rooted in the lizard brain. So
I'll jump in and just add one quick thing. Thank you, Ian. I love that context to this too. And as I was diving into the book, you see my eyes on the screen going left and right. I'm looking at references. I'm looking up quotes. And I just love diving in and researching while we're talking about it, as well as, when we're actually reading the book. And, it truly is biological. He says that deep within your brain lies the amygdala, the lizard brain. It sets out to sabotage anything that feels threatening, risky, or generous. And I thought that was interesting, because generous, interesting. Like, you ever said the phrase out loud or in your mind or in your gut, like, sounds too good to be true, and you have that, like, that red flag that goes up when you have, that's your amygdala, and it's saying, this doesn't seem normal. This is out of your normal, I'm gonna sunbathe on this rock lizard brain, right? And it really starts to tell you things. And I've got to tell you, because I am a firm believer in the combination of both spiritual and science. And the reason why I say that is because deeply rooted in us is the spiritual side of, we are intuitive spiritual beings that is operating off of a definitive and divine upbringing. That's my belief system. And I know that, and I've grown up believing that. And, whether you do or you don't, it's okay. But I believe in this combination. And then there's this fact that we're talking about literally biology. We're talking about your chemical compounding, which is a DNA structure of how we've been developed. And Ian, I love that you brought up the word Homo sapiens. I've been actually dying to say it. You said it first. I'm glad you did, because my amygdala was saying, nah,
I win.
read the room, John, not the room. And so you said it, and I was like, yes, I can say it now, which is funny, because there's a fantastic book. Not that I want to get away from this book. There's a fantastic book that I recommend reading every year, because it'll strengthen your belief in who you are as a human. It'll strengthen your belief in what you believe in. as a operating human. And the book's just called Sapiens. I'm forgetting the name of the author. It's like an 800-page book, though. So Audible is great. But if you read that book, and I read it at least once a year because it's a grounding experience to know where you've come from. Yes, you may have come from the primal, I forget which ape race or species we truly come from, but essentially there's just a lot of conversation around it, and they go into the science and they go into the biology and they go up to the makeup of it. It's just crazy how evolution has come along. So anyways, wrapping up my thought is, I love that you brought that up, and I love that I went through that amygdala experience, that lizard brain experience, as you said that, because I was afraid to bring it up and bring it in. But I think that this conversation deserves a little bit more resourcefulness to our listeners, because they should know that this is totally normal. This is natural. And hopefully all the experiences that we're sharing between the three of us, at least one of them is resonating, because you've probably experienced any one of these experiences in your life, and you may have handled them the same, or you may have handled them differently. We haven't even gotten to the fact that some of our lizard brains say, you know what, claws out, hands up, punching bags, let's go. That's my response to the fear. And some of you might have that, and don't worry, like, it's innate. It's part of you. And can you work on it? Sure you can, but just recognize, slow down, take a deep breath, and recognize that is human. That is normal. It may not feel normal because your blood is racing, your heart is pumping, your brain completely flips a switch, and you're doing things you didn't think you'd ever do before. But just know that there is a purpose for all of that, and it's deeply rooted in your responses and your belief system as to why you are or are not going to put yourself in a position to be an indispensable human being in that moment. And I want to get into that in a little bit here, but I just wanted to add on.
John, I love that your primal instinct is to put your fist up and fight people. Joking. I am so glad that we're having this conversation, and you nailed it. We are humans. Each of us, we're not three people here discussing this because we know exactly what happens. Us three are perfect in what we're doing. We are all here because we are trying to overcome it. And as we overcome it, we want to share it with other people so that all of us can have these ideas go. There's not competition. It's cooperation. Each of us are cooperating with each other. Each of us, and there's another C word that I'm missing, but we're not in competition. We are here learning. We're here getting that third mind, the brain, as it says in Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill. It's creating the individual thing that, as we go forward and as we are weak, as we make mistakes, and as we have that the resistance, that we can get past that lizard brain and actually push forward into what we're achieving. Because that's what this is all about. We're here to become champions, and we're working every day to become champions. And as we are going forward towards that, we each bounce ideas off each other to build that resilience to the resistance, because each of us need that resilience. And I think that with that resistance, three things come to my mind that I just want to quickly touch on, because there are three different ideas, and I'm sure we can have a whole conversation about it. But when it comes to creativity, when it comes to leadership, three things usually come up with the lizard brain. First one is the fear of failure or criticism. This is where that resistance thrives within us. And it's where we are feeling judged publicly or failing publicly, and it prevents us from moving forward. There's a second part of us seeking comfort over growth. So instead of wanting what is in the future, we are willing to give it up in order to be comfortable in the present, which hurts us later in the future, but we don't want the pain now. So we're willing to be comfortable now than to grow. And that stops us and sabotages us with leadership and creativity. And then the third thing is perfectionism as a mask. With that lizard brain, we create the excuse to delay action. and we become the perfectionist where things have to be perfect. And it's not even perfectionism because it's fake perfectionism. If you're actually a perfectionist, you take action to get to that perfection. But the fake perfectionist, and I'm with most people on this, is that what we do is that we try to make things perfect before we put it out, when it's the quantity of putting it out that helps us to get perfect. So those are 3 ideas that I want to share with you. And I love to hear each of your thoughts on that. But it boils down to, we are human beings.
We are. Um, I'll jump into there. As human beings, we are a social animal. We are pretty weak by ourselves. We don't have, except for John's got the claws. The rest of us don't necessarily have the claws to defend ourselves. We don't have the thick coats of fur to protect ourselves. We rely on the social atmosphere around us. We rely on other people. We rely on trade and craftsmen and people making tools and things for our very survival. So I think that innate fear we have, that lizard brain is saying, you can't afford to go outside of society because you're going to die if you don't have society around you, if you don't have your group, your tribe, your pack to protect you. Um, so I think that's a lot of it. We're afraid to socially step outside because we're not very strong on our own. But yet, anyone who makes a change in the world has only done that when they have stepped outside, when they've become something different, when they've been able to move beyond what everyone else is doing. I love the story of the Buddha and his progression to his enlightenment. And you may know some of it, I'll do it really quick, but he was raised as a prince in luxury. And as a young adult, he traveled for the first time and saw sickness and pain and disease. And it hit him so much, he didn't know how the world could be like that. So he spent the next several years doing what everybody else did. He followed the aesthetics. He practiced fasting. He studied scriptures with other people. And he just followed what all of the other teachers did. And he became famous for being really good at what everybody else did. And if that was the end of the story, he would have been lost to history. But then he went and sat down under the banyan tree, if I remember correctly, and meditated and received this enlightenment and went out and started teaching people something different. And he was willing to go out and go against all of those people who were with him before, who now were turned against him. All of his old friends, his old teachers, put him down, discouraged him, told people not to listen to him. But he was willing to go beyond that. And I think that's our social animal wants that protection, that lizard brain. But at some point, we realize that this is not enlightenment, not to trivialize the Buddha and the term of enlightenment. But there's more to it. And when we say, I'm not satisfied with where I am, I can have more, whether it's intrinsically for me, whether it's more muscles in my arms. It's going to take working harder and doing a change, doing something different. So I think that's the beauty of being a human. It's so wonderful that we have this innate ability to protect ourselves, to get us to this level to be safe. But then we have this infinite ability to go beyond that and become anything we want to be. A few limitations in there, but we can become whatever we want. So I love how you set that up, Willie, and I hope that I filled some of the ideas that you had with that. But I'll close out my thoughts on that point.
I'm inspired by what you said, Ian, and I'll just quickly wrap up too and just say, as much as the lizard brain is biologically ingrained in us, so is the infinite opportunities, as you explained. And I love that you said that, because is there a way out? Is there a way to improve? Absolutely. Do most leaders emerge from the crowds? Yes, they do. It's hard to be a leader in a siloed world, because nobody knows you. You don't earn the respect of others. So you have to learn what the community is doing before you stand out. And I love that. And when I first read this book, 10 years ago, it stood out to me that Linchpin wasn't just being indispensable, it was being unforgettable, unimaginable, unbelievable. And that comes from not only mastering the trades of what everyone else can do, but also we just finished reading a book called Strength Finders 2.0, and it's delving deeper into your greatest strengths. It is so easy nowadays to stand out as a leader, as a provoked thought leader, as a linchpin, because of one, your difference between the masses and your ability to express and shine and be different. The creativity factor is so much more. And so I love that you brought that up, Ian. And I couldn't agree more. Like I think that there's so much opportunity in a world that feels or seems or even could biologically appear as that there's zero creativity. We're all the same. There's no uniqueness in anything, and we're all just a bunch of sheep walking in the same direction. And that's not the case. You are more unique than you actually know. And being a linchpin is going to take a lot of effort, but it's inside you. It's literally right here. And all you've got to do is just embellish and dig deep and start to really exercise that inner you, which is so unique and awesome. And that's the answer to being, indispensable.
It truly is just uncovering the leaves of fear, anxiety, resistance over our true selves. Like over the years, we have put up walls, we've put up leaves over our true selves to hide it and protect it. And so becoming a linchpin, becoming indispensable isn't something that you have to go out and reach for. It's already inside of you. You just got to start picking up the leaves, start taking off the barriers, start breaking down those walls to get where you need to go. I'm grateful for this conversation that we've all been able to have. And that's been another great episode of Champion Reads. Champions, you are awesome. If you found inspiration in this episode, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms and even the small ones as well. As well as you can go to our website, mychampionscircle.com. There you'll be able to find the link to our podcast, links to our socials, and everything else going in the Champion Circle universe. And until next time, my friends, continue to be awesome, continue to be the champions in your lives, and always remember that you are innately a linchpin in your life. Just focus on your strengths, break down those barriers, and you can become indispensable. We'll see you on the next episode of Champion Reads.